Hi everyone, I am Jennifer Lont. I'm a Homeworks by Precept consultant, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about how to use spelling from BJU Press Homeschool with your advanced student. In my last video I explained that I don't like to skip grades or even skip levels in different subjects with my own boys. I'm trying to build a solid wall to make a sure foundation, no gaps. Our video course teacher, Mrs. Walker, has talked about it this way. Whenever your child excels, go wider, not higher. So today I'd like to talk about the curriculum and what we use in the curriculum and what we don't use, and then how we can go wider with the curriculum. If your child regularly aces his spelling tests, then I would recommend that you do spelling parent-led. It's just easier to customize for your child whenever you're doing parent-led. You've got your hands right on the steering wheel. You can choose which parts that you're going to do and which parts that you're going to skip, what parts that you want to pick up the pace, and it just frankly takes less time each day if you do spelling parent-led. So let me start by talking about the things that we do use from the curriculum. Each week is a new list, and each list starts with a pretest. Now, I like the pretests because they challenge your child to find out what he already knows. And sometimes whenever your child is taking a pretest, even if he's a good speller, he will be confronted with, oh, is it with one S or two S's? He might have a couple different ideas of how to spell this word. So a pretest helps him commit to a spelling and find out whether he was right or wrong, which is a really great way to learn whenever you have to say what the answer is and then you are confronted with your mistake afterwards. It helps you to see that, oh, you didn't know it as well as you thought you did. So the pretest will help your child find out what he really knows, and then I have my kids do the workbook throughout the week, whether they did well on the pretest or not, because a good guess on a pretest on Monday will turn into confident knowledge by the time the test comes on Friday if they've been doing the work in the book. When I was finished giving the pretest to my son, one of the things that I would like to do occasionally is to ask him what those words had in common. Now, each list is arranged by a certain spelling pattern. It might be that they are homophones, or that the words all have the same vowel sounds. For example, in Spelling 5, List 3, we've got the long E sound. So there is weave, redeem, yield, either, receive, marine. Each one has a different spelling for the same sound. So that would be the focus for the week. And if your child is advanced and he is doing well, that is one way that you can challenge him a little bit further. What is our focus this week? What do these words have in common? Then your child will get into the workbook for the week as he does his seat work, and he will practice using those words, using them in ways that show their meanings, using them with their dictionary skills and analogies, and just sorting them in different ways. Those things will all help deepen his skills in spelling and strengthen them, make sure that they're really solid. But I did make a deal with my second son. My first son never got to do this, but my second son and I made a deal that whenever the midweek test rolled around, when it was time for a practice test, if he got 100% on his practice test on Wednesday, he did not have to take the final test on Friday. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm still on grade level, I'm still doing all the work, and skipping that last test of the week is a reasonable modification for my child. He's done well on his pretest, he's done well on his practice test, and he's done the work to make it solidified in his mind. So if he got that 100%, that was motivation for him to make sure he knew what he was talking about, and then he wouldn't have to do the test on Friday. Okay, so we've talked about the things that I still do in spelling and that I skip a little bit, but now I want to talk about how you can go wider with the spelling curriculum and enrich or challenge your students who are doing really well. So open up to the very first pages in your teacher's edition. I recommend doing this for every subject because you will find information from the textbook authors that will help you teach the class all year long. There may be things like you may find the location of different components, whether it's in an appendix at the back or something like that. You will find tips or techniques for teaching different parts of the lessons. You will find the purpose, why they do that thing that they do. You will find worldview there. You will find so much. And I know I have really grown as a teacher just by reading the front matter in my boys' textbooks in the teacher's editions. So the Spelling 5 book has some notes here about meeting specific needs. So it says there's a differentiated instruction section in the back of the book. So I've got a little tab here. I just want to throw this in. I love these sticky tabs that are clear and they're really sturdy, and you can move them every day. If you're doing parent-led and you want to mark your place in your teacher's edition, move them every day. They stick for a really long time. You can still see through them. They're wonderful. So that one was for free. But in the back here, we've got a section that says Enrichment. And it talks about how you can expand your child's word list to give them a challenge. It says determine the maximum number of misspelled words needed on the pretest to allow for the use of an expanded list. So once again, you are in charge. You are making the decisions. It's up to you whether you do extra words every week or if your child needs to meet a certain criteria, like maybe missing one or two or none each week in order to do the extra words. I chose to just do it every week. They recommend that you add 3 to 5 words, and I added 5 because I knew my kids needed it. So what you do, you can turn the page and there are lists and lists of bonus words, and they're not just random words. These are words from the Science 5 curriculum, from the Heritage Studies 5, from math. There's a list of the books of the Bible. I think in one of the years they had a list of all of the states. So what I would do is choose 5 words that were pulled right out of something that my child was studying in another subject. I really like using these words from other subjects because they are teaching my child spelling skills, giving him an opportunity to study, to learn to study, whereas with the regular list words he doesn't have to study much. So he's learning some study skills. It helps them to learn words that they're going to be using in real life. It helps them to go a little bit deeper in the other content areas such as science or heritage studies. So what we would do is on Monday when my child would take his pretest, I would have him flip the paper over and he would always number 1 through 5 on the back of the paper, and then I would give him these 5 words as part of his pretest. Now he was always excited because as he got older he frequently spelled a lot of these words correctly as well. I think just the practice with harder words year after year gave him some pretty strong spelling skills, as well as those foundational different spellings, like we talked about the different ways that you can spell the long E sound. So it was always fun to see if there was a word that he couldn't spell yet or something. Frequently he would be guessing. He didn't know exactly how to spell some of the words, but he just really enjoyed himself getting these challenge words each week. So once we did the pretest, then I would show him the correct spelling and I would write them on these little sentence strip. I got them at the dollar store. So this particular week he might have done trachea and pharynx and esophagus, bronchitis, and mucus. And so I would post those. I have a pocket chart on my wall. I would post those on the wall so that he would be seeing them all week, and it would be easier for him to remember the spellings. But if you don't have a pocket chart, you could always type them up on your computer, put them in an extra large font, and post the sheet of paper on the wall with your challenge words. So that would be Monday. And then he would copy those words down into a notebook. He just wrote challenge words on the cover. And then, let's see, I've got a list here where he's got some other words: synthetic, semi-precious, turquoise, sapphire, and titanium. Those were the words that I gave him for one particular week this year. On Tuesdays, I'd like to do something fun to practice those challenge words, just to brighten everyone's day and be creative and yet still be practicing the spelling on those challenge words. So there are some ideas in the back of the teacher's edition. I like to go on Pinterest and type in spelling activities. You will find a bunch of fun ideas there. You might find things like spelling Battleship, where you use graph paper to make a game out of your spelling words, or just using rubber stamps to stamp those words letter by letter right into that challenge word notebook. Your child could use the computer to type the words and practice typing at the same time. There are lots of different ideas. I would just a word of experience here, I would avoid the ones that have your child writing the words in code, because that means you're going to have to sit there and figure out the code or refer to the chart to figure out the code instead of just checking the spelling words quickly. But there are lots of fun things that you can do. There's one called Roll and Spell, where your child will roll a die, and then he has a list that he can look at and maybe if he rolls a 5, he's got to write, he has to write the consonants all in blue and the vowels all in red. Or maybe if he rolls a 3, he needs to write each of his words with a different kind of fancy lettering. It could be whatever you want it to be. Just make a list for him of what he will do if he rolls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And you can be imaginative, think of things that your son or your daughter will enjoy doing. There is a free online word search generator, at least one that I know of. So you can do word searches of the challenge words, maybe do the last 2 weeks worth, and have your child practice 5 from this week and 5 from last week in the word search. We use bananagrams a lot. You can use Scrabble tiles too, or any letter tiles that you have. But your child can just lay these words out on the desk, spell his challenge words, and then you can just come by and do a quick visual check, and then he can put them away. Or you could have him make the words intersect like a crossword puzzle. My son frequently actually would write them in his challenge word book like that. He would just write it on the paper like a crossword puzzle. Another fun one that I found on Pinterest was called Mystery Word, and I did this a couple times when my kids were younger. I remember once I did it when the words were like winter, spring, summer, and then either fall or autumn. I don't remember which it was at the time. But what I did was I pulled out bananagram tiles that my son would need to spell all those words, and then I included a few more tiles that were needed to spell an extra word, a mystery word. And in that case, the mystery word was seasons. So he would spell winter, spring, summer, fall, and then he would look at the letters he had left and try to make a word out of it. So there are so many different ways that you can challenge your child. Again, this is not something I did every day. I try to do something fun on Tuesdays, but I didn't always put forth that much effort. I didn't always pull out the bananagrams tiles or play Battleship Some of those things just take time, and sometimes we don't have time to do them. On Wednesday, then we just did the practice test, because sometimes it's just nice to have a shorter day. And then on Thursdays, I would always have my son write sentences that used those challenge words to show that he knew the meanings of them. So sometimes he would be digging in his science book to try to come up with good sentences or to understand the meaning so that he could use the word better in a sentence. And you can teach your child when they're younger to what kinds of sentences you're looking for. Like if the word was summer, your child might want to write, "I like summer," which for a young child may be an appropriate sentence, but you can challenge your child to put something in the sentence that shows what summer is. Like, "I like swimming in summer," or "we grow vegetables in summer." So show them what you're looking for. I'll also point out here too, because I'm talking about younger spellers, that there are going to be a lot of phonetic spellings whenever your child is younger. And that's okay. You don't want to pick on every little thing they do. It can be discouraging. So as they grow, as their skills increase, you will know, okay, let's pick out that word. That's going to be a word that he's going to be using often, and let's use that one. Or maybe put it on next week's challenge words list. Or maybe it's a word that has already been a sight word, or it's been on a previous list. Those things should be spelled correctly. So if you see something like that you know your child has learned in the past, hold them to it. Make sure that they are spelling it correctly, but keep it positive. Just mark it, and then they should be able to take a look at their work and make any corrections and give it back to you. That way that they are being confronted with those mistakes and learning from them. On Friday was the final test, if my son had not gotten 100% on his test on Wednesday. And I did grade the challenge words. I just made them worth 2 points each. So all 5 words were only worth 10 points, 10% of the grade. So it was just something to give them a little push, and yet not anything that would hurt them. But my boys would rise to the challenge, and they often would say, "Come on, Mom, give me a harder one." So enjoy picking out those bonus words, those challenge words with your kids. If there is not a list in the back of your teacher's edition, I don't think there is one in the back of the first grade teacher's edition, and I'm not sure about second grade, but just open your child's other textbooks, open his science book or his history book, and look for words that you think would be appropriate to challenge your child. And you'll learn as you go. Maybe there are some that are just too hard. Maybe you need to back off a little bit, but you will learn by doing. And one of the other things that our spelling curriculum offers is that at the end of the lesson in the workbook, not every week, but frequently, there is a writing activity. And this writing activity is tied to our worldview for spelling. Why are we spelling? Why are we learning this skill? Why do we study this in school? And this is important to teach your kids as well. We are learning to communicate so that we can communicate God's message. We are learning to spell well so that we can use writing to love our neighbors by either witnessing to them or being friendly, encouraging, writing a thank you letter. So they will often have writing assignments in which your child uses his spelling skills to do something for someone else or to copy out a verse. Another thing that you could do to modify the curriculum is replacing these workbook activities with real-world activities. Instead of writing in the workbook, give your child a real sheet of paper and say, "Let's write to Grandma today," or "Let's thank someone who has been a big influence, who has taught us a lot about the Bible. Let's thank someone." So you can replace some of those workbook activities with other real-world writing activities where your child can truly be a blessing to someone else. There are a couple of other things that you can do to strengthen your child's spelling skills. First of all, make sure that your child is reading. Reading silently and frequently will help your child strengthen those skills. I've heard my second son often say, "I know that word, I can spell that, I've seen that in a book before." So read often. And then secondly, play some games as a family. Not only will you enjoy making memories together, but you can also learn while you're playing. So some games will strengthen logic skills or use strategy. Other games will strengthen word skills. I think most people know about Upwards or Scrabble Junior. There's Boggle and Bananagrams. There are lots of word games that will help your child with spelling. I'm going to give you a few recommendations of some others that we have played and I have enjoyed. So this one is called Quiddler, and this one is a little bit harder. It would be for your upper elementary students. You are dealt cards that have letters on them, and what you're going to do is try to make the biggest words you can out of the cards that you have been dealt. So that one's a good challenge. Another one is a vintage game called Probe. So maybe if you see this at a yard sale, you might want to snatch this one up. It's kind of like Hangman, where you've got a word that you have hidden, so all cards are face down at first. And then it's sort of like Go Fish, or like Wheel of Fortune maybe, where you call for a letter and then the other person will have to uncover it and show you where that letter is until they can try to guess your word. So that's Probe. And then the last one I'm going to recommend today is a great game. It's got a terrible name, Smart Mouth, and this one is good for littles as well. So what you do, it's got this neat slider, and you slide it forward and it's going to reveal 2-letter tiles, and you're going to try to think of a word that begins with the orange letter and ends with the green letter. So according to the rules, you're supposed to race each other, and whoever says the word first, or a word first that begins with the L and ends with a K, they get to keep the tiles. You could modify this by taking turns, and each person would have a turn with whatever tiles come up. So there are many ways that you can play Smart Mouth, and then you can include your little ones in it as well. So these are some fun things you can do to strengthen your children and their spelling skills. I love Mrs. Walker's advice to go wider instead of higher, because you get all the benefits of staying in the grade level. You don't miss anything, you've got a solid foundation, and then it gives you a chance to finish quickly, to supplement, to challenge, to enrich what they're already doing. As my boys got older, I did less and less spelling instruction with them, and they ended up doing spelling pretty much as an independent study, and it was a quick subject each day. I hope this video gives you some ideas of some things that you can do with your own kids, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find some fun things that you can do along the way. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or would like to talk to me, I would be glad to talk to you about how you can use these ideas or others to teach your advanced child. Thanks so much.